for the enrollment of non-resident students to order. You want to review that policy?
Okay, I'll review the enrollment of non-resident students, JBCC. As you know, Kansas law requires the board to allow non-resident students to enroll and attend the schools of the district if the board's capacity determination finds there are open seats for such students. That's state law. Nothing cannot prevent students from enrolling except if they're under expulsion. It doesn't matter. Okay? I'll get into continuing enrollment pretty soon, but the initial enrollment, that's the only thing you can initially use to not enroll kids. The following is definitions of homeless child, non-resident student, receiving school district, what a sibling means. When you determine the capacity for non-resident enrollment, the superintendent or their designee has a responsibility for studying capacity at each school of the school district and at each grade level within each building for making recommendations to the board regarding the district's capacity to accept non-resident students. Superintendent or designee shall develop recommendations on the capacity and classroom student-teacher ratios in each grade level in each school serving kindergarten students through 8th grade. The superintendent or designee shall develop recommendations on capacity and student-to-teacher ratios for each school building or program serving students in grades 9 through 12. On or before May 1st of each year, the superintendent shall present recommendations concerning capacity, student-teacher ratios to the board for adoption or modification. And the board shall determine for each grade level of each school building of the school district for the next succeeding school year. On or before June 1st of each year, the district shall publish the number of open seats available to non-resident students at each grade level for each building for the next year on the school's website. June 1 to June 30th, the district administration shall accept applications from non-resident students. If the number of applications for a grade level in a school building is less than the number of available seats for the grade level, the non-resident student shall be accepted for enrollment and attendance, except as provided for non-resident students regarding continued enrollment. Well, that comes up later. If the number of applications for a grade level is greater than the number of available seats for that grade level, district administration shall randomly select non-resident students using a confidential lottery process. This process will be completed on or before July 15th of each year. District shall provide the parent or person acting as a parent of a non-resident student who was not accepted for or denied enrollment at such school district for the reason for the non-acceptance or denial. Propriety of filling open seats. The district shall give a priority to the enrollment of the following non-resident students. Any sibling of a non-resident student who was accepted to enroll in and attend school within the district. Any resident student who has a military student as defined in KSA 72-5139. Regardless of the capacity determinations, the following categories of students shall be allowed to enroll if resident students, just like they're resident students. Any child who is in the custody Department of Children and Families. Any non-resident student who has a parent or person acting as a parent employed by the district while the parent or person acting as a parent remains employed by the district. Any child who is experiencing homelessness. The district cannot charge tuition or fees to non-resident students who transfers, different from those in-district students. They cannot accept or deny non-resident students on their ethnicity, national origin, gender, income level, disability condition, proficiency in English language, measure of achievement, aptitude, or athletic ability. Except for a child in custody of the Department of Children and Families, a child who is experiencing homelessness, a non-resident student shall not transfer more than once per school year to one or more receiving districts. The receiving district is not required to provide transportation to non-resident students unless otherwise required to do by state or federal law, which would include IEPs or Section 504 plans. Nothing in this policy or state law shall exempt non-resident students who transfers into the district the requirements of the Kansas State High School Activities Association. The superintendent shall submit to the Kansas Department of Education in this policy the number of non-resident student transfers approved and denied in each grade level, and whether the denials were based on capacity or in accordance to the policy terms as required. Non-resident student continued enrollment. Once accepted, you can continue to enroll and attend the district until they graduate high school, reach the age of 21, if they have an IEP, receives a GED, if they receive a GED, unless a student is no longer deemed by the district administration to be in good standing. The district does not require parents to submit new applications each year in advance once they are approved. The following reasons are a student not in good standing. Non-resident student failed to maintain 92% attendance rate last school year. Non-resident student or student's parents acting as the parent provided false or fraudulent information in the application process. The non-resident student is not a resident of Kansas. The student is currently under a period of suspension or expulsion from any Kansas school district and will not expire until the next school year begins. The student failed multiple classes in this current school year and is not on track to graduate with his cohort class. The student has had multiple behavior referrals. The student has been given a long-term suspension expulsion from the district school year. Parents shall be informed by administrative decision not to continue enrollment of the non-resident student no later than June 1st. That's kind of a summary of that policy.
Okay. Any questions over that right now, or do we wait till later?
So, need to
Public comment.
public comments and or any questions. There will be no action at this time until.
Any public comment? All right, we will adjourn the hearing on the enrollment of non-resident students. Now we will call to order.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, okay, second. Thank you. Motion by Chad, second by Allison. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, now we will call to order the regular board meeting. And I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Allison, second by Chad. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Approval of the minutes from the 10-9, 10-18, and 11-8 meetings. Any questions, comments, changes? Okay, there's a motion by Josh to accept those minutes.
Second.
And a second from Allison. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Okay. Motion passes 5-0 to 1. Okay, approval of the treasurer's report.
I move we approve.
Motion from Brad to approve the treasurer's report. And a second from Josh. Any questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. The motion passes 6-0. And then approval of invoices.
Might just cover some of the larger ones in there. Number one, we had the audit, pay for the audit. Also, there's an additional election cost for this organization. The first bill we got from Ellsworth County did not include Martin County's bill. That bill came in at $5,029 from Martin County for their election. Also, we have a pretty significant one from Graduation Alliance, students that are obtaining credits. Patterson grant will pay for professional development out of the Patterson grant. That's also in there. Also, new custodial equipment at Wilson is in there. Of course, transportation. Then also we made a down payment on the security project that the board approved. Those are kind of the major ones.
Any other questions?
Move to approve the invoices as presented.
There's a motion by Allison. And a second by Josh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. And the reconciliation and cash balances report.
Okay, those all match. The cash summary report, October 31st, matches the cash in the bank, which also matches the treasurer's report.
Thank you very much.
Let me see if there's anything. Nobody.
You sure you don't want to? Okay. So we will review the HVAC project bids.
So they were supposed to be here. It's about 5 minutes out. We can go ahead and go with the change the agenda to move up the audit report.
Okay. Okay, so due to scheduling, and we'll go ahead and do the audit report.
We'll keep it under 5 minutes. I'm Kim Bowling, I'm with Adams Brown, and I was on site here a month or so ago working on the audit with both Bill and Diane, and they both were very helpful, so make this quick. I'll start with your bound copy of the audit report. If you want to turn to page 1, this is our independent auditor's report. Of course, we had an unmodified opinion based on the regulatory basis of accounting, which is basically a clean opinion. If you want to skip over to page 4, this is the financial statement. It is a summary of each fund with their beginning unencumbered cash, receipts, expenditures, ending unencumbered cash, encumbrances, and then ending cash. Overall, you'll notice your cash increased about $500,000 over the year. It was in 3 funds mainly. You had your capital outlay fund, which just didn't see as many projects. The at-risk fund, you had a larger transfer in. And then there was a new fund for the Child Care Network. Central Plains Child Care Network Fund, which is donations that were raised to construct a child care facility. Okay. Overall, your ending unencumbered cash was about $1.6 million. Next are the footnotes. These are going to be very similar to what you have seen in the past. We had no major changes to any of the accounting standards this year. So I will just point out a couple of them. Page 7 is footnote 3. Since you guys are on the cash basis, we do spend quite a bit of time focusing on cash, making sure that all of your accounts are reconciled. We confirm all of your accounts, and we make sure that they are all adequately secured as of year end. And then I will skip over to page 12. The last footnote is on your debt. Currently, you only have one finance lease that is set to be paid off in 2028 for some HVAC systems. Another item we do look at in detail is compliance with Kansas statutes. There are probably about a couple dozen different statutes we look at, and we found no issues in any of those. Then we'll get to the supplemental information in the report. Page 14 is a budget to actual. And you'll note that all funds were under budget for the year. And then the remainder of the report is a detail by each fund showing the different types of receipts and expenditures and then comparing them to prior year and budget. Any questions on the audit report? If not, I'll have you look at the loose leaf paper that I also handed out. This is our required communication to the board just to make sure that everyone's on the same page and that you know what the audit process entailed. Had we had any difficulties in performing the audit or any disagreements with management, we would note that here. We would also note if we had any misstatements, and there were none that needed to be posted. At the bottom of the second page, we do have one item that we wanted to point out. We did look at all of the activity funds at the different schools, and we noted that Wilson High School did pay for some lobbying expenses out of the activity fund. That is not allowed per the Kansas statute. However, we did note by reviewing the bank account that it appears that those funds were reimbursed to the activity fund, as if they had not come out, but they never should have hit the activity fund to begin with. We also went through each monthly account report and noted that there was a new fund in August of 2022 titled Alumni T-Shirts. The fund was subsequently closed in June, but alumni funds should not be run through an activity fund. It is for the students in district only. However, when we did pull up the year-to-date activity report, none of that activity was reported in there. So we need to make sure that all activity is reported in the year-to-date report. Finally, we just recommend that all policies and procedures that are established by the board be followed by each activity fund. The next section is on internal controls. We did notice that there was one significant deficiency. Due to the size of the district, segregation of duties cannot be adequate. It's not cost effective to hire a bunch of people to remedy that, so that will just be an ongoing concern that we report to make sure that you guys are aware of it and to stay involved in the process and keep an eye on things. Any questions on that? All right. Well, if you have anything that you think of later, you can always reach out to us. Diane has my contact information. All right. Thank you.
We'll get that letter signed and then I'll get that sent to you. Time this week is fine with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will continue to hold item number 9. Should
We
we
need to approve.
approve the, sorry. I move to approve the 2022-2023 audit report as presented. Thank you, Allison.
Second.
There's a motion by Allison and a second by Chad. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Okay.
Leave the back page back.
Okay. Now we will return to item number 9.
Chris. Go ahead. Chris is here with Innovative Groups. You can come up here if you'd like.
All right. Well, if everybody remembers scope we kind of went over last time, we got our formal bids back on it. We ended up getting 3 bids. 2 of them followed protocol, turned them in the way they were supposed to. The other one did not. It turned out not being a number that was low for us anyway, which is fine. Our low bid for the project was $480,600. I believe our ESSER budget was $350,000, so it was a little higher than we were hoping. We had an alternate number 1 to add direct digital controls to the building. It would basically just take over the new remodel portion only. That number was $35,800. And we also requested a bid to replace the main distribution panel at the high school. We determined that while we were there, if the school ever decides to do the next renovation or whatever, that's probably going to be a requirement. So we just asked for pricing just to see what it would look like. That number was $55,200. So the low bid, with it being over our ESSER budget, we've talked to the contractor, and we have pursued. We requested pricing from different equipment and pricing from a different electrical subcontractor, and between those 2 things, they've generated about $18,000 to $20,000 in savings from their bid since then. Since we went through the formal bid process on this, were we to choose to move forward, we would have to sign the contract for $480,600 and then accept the deducts after the fact. But we do have, I'm sorry, it was more than that. It was closer to $30,000.
About 30,900.
Yeah, sorry, I did that wrong. 19 on one, 11 on the other. So, again, if the board were to elect to move forward, the contract would be $480,600, but we would immediately follow it with a couple of alternates to reduce that cost to close to $450,000.
What's our exact ESSER money?
Well, it's $350 for the whole project. But yeah, that's a maximum number because the remainder is tied up in different programs. So $350 is our ESSER amount, and that does include engineering and some of the things that we've already done. The way I calculated it is that with the $30,000 deduction after approval, it would cost the district about $120,000 on capital outlay.
So the good news right now is with the ESSER funds that are available, I won't say that we'll never have the opportunity for it again, but it's a pretty substantial chunk of money to help with the project. Obviously, we were hopeful that pricing would be lower than it is, but what we've struggled with in the last 3 summers is, with it being ESSER, following federal guidelines, a lot of the contractors just aren't interested. At our other schools, I think 3 bids is the most we ever get. Once you get out of ESSER funds and get away from those guidelines, it seems like we've had a lot better luck getting more people to bid the project. And
The guidelines are just that much more stricter.
now they put you into prevailing wage, so the non-union guys have to pay their guys more. And they've got to keep track of certified payroll. all things that a lot of companies aren't really set up to do. But with the ESSER funding, I think if the board elects to, it's a viable project.
So when are we, if we approve this, when are we looking at starting, and is it gonna get paid out of this year's or next year's, this year's?
It has to be done, ESSER has to be spent by September, but I think the goal is to be completed before we start the school year.
Okay.
Going to different school.
Right, I understand.
So I would assume the projected timeline is to be done by August 1 or so, close to that date.
Correct. We put that in the documents, and a lot of times on projects of this size, we won't put liquidated damages, but just the nature of the last couple of years, we put them on there. It's got to be done by the first.
Right.
Substantially complete.
We can recover the cash.
We have to, if you approve it tonight, it has to be encumbered,
Okay.
which is coming out this year's.
Yes.
Not. Practice has been to do it 1 year and push it into the next year.
Right.
This is current year.
And just to clarify, if we don't approve this project, there's probably nothing else that we could spend the ESSER money on.
It's going to be, it's been to a lot of different things. In fact, we're paying some salaries out of it, which when it comes to an end, that will have to be switched over to general fund or local option budget. So it'll be difficult to fit that as well. So,
So this
I might give you just remind you of the history. There was a project approved back in the early 22 there of security date, but that was completely denied after we ended up paying that out of capital outlay. Found another project to kind of replace those funds. So I was trying to replace project what was kind of in the ESSER plan.
And we have gotten approval for ESSER, which doesn't mean anything other. If you guys elect to move forward, you're good to go.
So right now, these heater controls, are they ran through the boiler system? Are we still using that, or is it going to be eliminated and it's going to be kind of its own system?
Yeah, great question. So we looked at doing both, and one of the issues the high school has is, for whatever reason up there, they trap air like crazy. So they've constantly got to get somebody up on that roof, get down in there, and bleed off air in the system. So for this project, we elected to go gas. So we're bringing gas over from the boiler room underground up the side of the building to pick up these units. So it won't be tied to the boiler whatsoever. And if we don't take the controls, we'll have a controller on the wall for each unit. There's 2 units too for privacy. And we can put lockable covers on them, get them programmed however we want them to run.
So that might help our boiler system throughout the rest of the year.
It's heat.
You have any idea on yearly cost of what they're on this? I know it's like so variable, but
I don't. The good news, so the gym we did, or the weight room, we didn't add anything. We're going to reuse everything that's there. We just added cooling to it. For this unit, for the gym units, I mean, more often than not, you're probably not using a whole lot of gas. The cooling's going to be the heavy load part, but a lot of events occur at night, and the ones that have nice evenings like basketball, those you can run fresh air through the units. So we've got the economizers on the units, so if it's 55 degrees outside, we don't even have to run the compressors, which would be something that'll be nice to have. And when we do that, we'll kick the exhaust fans on to balance the pressure in there so it doesn't get overpressurized.
any idea of yearly maintenance costs?
Typically on those units, maintenance contracts, $2,500, $3,500 a year. Usually filters, checking the gas heat exchangers out, checking the compressors. You do have 1 year parts and labor covered, and then you've got I believe it's a 10-year compressor warranty with a 25-year heat exchanger warranty. So your major components are going to be covered for a while. The other thing too is we get the HVAC equipment out of that penthouse. So now maintenance can be done on the roof rather than climb down there. Not that it's terrible in there, but getting there is a challenge, that's for sure. We also will have improved airflow, and that was made a comment to me that the people in the stands really, when the heat's on, they just get burned out. So we've made some adjustments to help alleviate that as well.
That's 120 grand out of pocket.
Yes. That's counting what we spent, it's just not this big. I have to add that we spent about 20,000 so far on engineering. The letters that we had to get for ESSER, the requirements for ESSER. They all qualify for ESSER also, but really it's irrelevant if it's over. What's pushing you over pushes you over, and it's right at 120,000.
Personally, for me, I think we could possibly spend 120 grand elsewhere on the district. That's my thought. Being there would be nice, but I survived my whole deal through there.
Big thing is trying to spend this ESSER money before it's gone.
We don't have to spend it. It's just free money. But it's like,
not too often you get free
but
money.
you get a coupon to entice you to buy something.
Yep.
That's what this is. 7% coupon to entice you to buy something you want, but may not necessarily need.
The big thing I see also on it is we could probably stretch out our boiler system because it's not supplying into the gym, which is a big chunk. It's probably more 51 could use another on that. And a lot of that's getting a lot older.
I'm guessing the equipment's 50 years old, probably. Now those are built different. They're built different from the machines we have today.
Right.
There's a reason why it's still running. But yeah, I think eventually you're going to run into an issue with that regardless. And it doesn't mean you have to go back with cooling or anything like that. We can go back with a heater. But I will say this, because we've measured everything in there, getting that equipment out. In fact, we've decided to abandon it in place because you can't get it out of anything. We've even looked at taking the movers off the side of the wall, but the units are too tall. Now you'd have to have somebody cut them up and pull them through.
I definitely understand and respect not being able or not having time to spend the money on something else. Yes, for money. I do struggle with spending even 120 when our capital outlay list is 100 pages long. There's a lot of things that we can spend that money on and need to spend that money on. Yeah, I agree it'd be nice, but I don't know if it's 120 nice when there's a lot of other things that we need to spend money on, and it's gonna come up pretty quick.
We could possibly have a lot of big projects come with grade school, if that we're out of man. Who knows what?
Yeah, you could have that anywhere. I mean, tomorrow our heating unit in the gym could go, there's $200,000-300,000.
What is out there? I get
Well, I
that.
agree.
And that's not to say too, we could look at pulling the weight room out of that too, as a deduct also. I have not entertained that.
What do you have any idea what that dollar figure was?
I don't, I know the bulk of the cost of the project is equipment, like the new rooftops. I think they were $160,000 by themselves. And we had competitive bids from 3 manufacturers, so that number's per ton is more than it was just 2 years ago in lines. So, and that's something we battle every summer also, is everything just keeps going up. Expected it to start coming down by now, but after COVID, it just, well, here's our new normal.
I think the weight room is pennies on the dollar, because they're already, just like you said, using the same unit, they're just adding coolant to it. And it's not a big commercial rooftop.
But if capital outlet money's tight, then that might be something to consider.
Do these bids need to be approved? Or
What's that?
When's the deadline for approval?
That's kind of what you need to tell us. I don't know your timeline.
So, equipment lead times right now are 25 to 30 weeks out. So, it doesn't mean, I know you have to have it encumbered by September. So if it goes much longer than that, then you're almost paying for the contractor's time, which I don't like, but this contractor in particular I know very well, and I would trust him to finish it up. So if you waited another month, I think you would be okay, but it makes that August 1st deadline really tough.
So I know that our capital outlay list, is always pretty long. But we have accomplished, several things on that list over the last few years. New carpet, new painting, and the security system, which we thought was gonna be paid for, and wasn't. So I feel like by not approving this, we would be losing that extra, which I know, I understand what you're saying. Coupons are there to entice you to spend money, but the heating and cooling in the weight room was one of the things on that capital outlay list anyway. So why not do it when you have $350 extra to help, instead of having to encumber it all on our own. And I like the idea of taking some of the strain off of our board. Sorry. But it is disappointing that it's over the estimate. Apologies. So being an ESSER project, does that I understand there's a lot more guidelines that have to be covered too, but is that given an extra discount too, or just because of the extra money
Discount for,
for the project?
I think there's more things involved that the contractors have to do that inflates the cost. That's what I would tell you. The general use of union wages for everyone and things like that. How you use your money causes your contractors to increase their costs because of extra things that they have to do. Plus, they have to pay their employees as wages as mandated by federal law.
Is there anything on your scope that would have maybe fit under the ESSER funds that you looked at? That
So, on a project basis, it usually has to deal with air quality, fresh air, air quality, security, and things. And again, depends on who you talk to. You say, well, they shouldn't be included because they told me directly that it had not approved any rate for security. I don't even know if you've done, that's all you've probably done is ESSER projects that deal with the air quality. I'll assume. There's not a lot of projects that you have to do. So with your projects, we have to do an environmental impact. We have to do an air study. We have to do a register for historical. Because you have to make sure you're not disturbing anything that's on the historical list. And so there are several things you have to do for any project. At this time, I don't know what that would. First of all, I don't think you put anything together quick enough to get it done by the time you have to get it encumbered and spent. That's what I would say.
Like you said, you have to pay the contractor for the job that will be done. Unless
Yeah.
you trust that contractor.
I do, but
Yeah,
I mean,
but
at the
I'm
end of
just
the day,
saying on a new project.
yeah, at the end of the day, that is not what I would recommend for anybody.
I agree.
And back to what Bill was saying, ESSER, if we found a different project, we would have to present that back to ESSER. And they did a good job at turning around. I think once you got them the information, which they have all the information now, if we gave them a new write-up of a different scope.
Yeah, we could go a different scope to try to get down to that 352. I don't know. I think we have to review that. If
Yeah.
change your scope, and I would assume we have to rebid it too. You have to rebid it. Change the scope. You could change the scope down and try to come up with alternatives to get closer to the 350,000.
what do you have on the Bushton thing? 400.
Bushton,
What's that?
you paid $350,000 for the Bushton lease purchase, and you spent $215,000 to move it to Hollywood. You spent $1 million on
What do
the
we
project.
still owe?
I owe 3-4 years.
I'd rather put the 100,000 to pay off debt, personally.
My goal is to pay it off at the end of this year, to be honest.
Counting knocking an extra 120,000 out of the budget.
So we ended the year, this last year, at 569,000. And when I started, we were negative cash because we'd encumbered the previous year. And when we started this year, we're at 179,000. Right? That's where we are right here today.
That's where we are right now. But we
Right now, and we haven't got any new capital outlay money, which is going to be about 950,000.
in January.
And we have taken about 300,000 that was of custodial salaries that were always paid out of capital outlay. We removed all
We
that.
don't do that
We've
anymore.
removed that all out of capital outlay, so it's kind of capital outlays for projects and maintenance of the district. So,
Because the only thing we've taken out of this year is that house, right?
it's encumbered, and we got carpet at Wilson encumbered yet, that's gonna be done over Christmas break. This the other day, Bobby and I reviewed this.
But we did, well, projects that are already done and paid for is the carpeting at this end,
Yeah.
the high school and.
Yeah, we've already paid for like some carpet,
Already did that.
we've paid for a new computer to run the controls at Wilson. And we'd already put the 4 new compressors. He actually approved that before I got here. But they pushed it to July of 22. We also did all the roofs at Holyrood and Wilson. We did all that spray, all the gaps.
Is the air conditioner fixed up there? Like,
Huh?
is the air conditioner fixed in Wilson?
Not totally. We have one, so there's 2 units up there. And one of them runs really well now. The other one would run, but the coil has a crack in it now, which is probably leaked all the Freon out.
Or does
And
that
we get close enough with only operation of a half a building, we certainly didn't redo that. It'll take an additional 10 to 15,000 to fix the coil. Put about, I don't know, those compressors were about 20 a piece, put 4 of those in.
the only thing that's lacking right now is a coil on the other?
On the other, so there's 2 circuits.
Right.
And we only ran one. What really helped, I just put a new $3,000 computer on that, and she can actually control it now. So there was some issues on getting updates on that. There was an old computer, and since we've got that, she's been able to control it really well. But yeah, that's where they're at.
Any other questions or comments?
So you don't think that committing to this would prevent us from servicing that debt, clearing that off of the books at the end of the year?
If you look on page, the audit report that you just received, on page 17, is the capital outlay fund. She didn't go through each fund, which is fine about the capital outlay fund. You can see the difference from 2 years ago to last year, our expenditures, and on operation and maintenance, we're not gonna have salaries in there anymore this year. So the cash flow is gonna be better. Does that make sense? The prior year actual, that's like 21, 22, and then the actual is 22, 23. So that's why the cash went up at the end, unencumbered cash, 390 to 550,000. Just for your information.
But then after the ESSER funds are gone, those salaries will go back into operations and maintenance? Is that what
Hope
you're
not.
saying?
Hope
No.
not.
Okay,
That's a practice you don't like.
That's
If
not
you
the
do
plan.
that,
Okay.
you do that, that is usually done. You are, your local option budget, your general fund is running low, and you need more room. Those maintenance salaries in the capital outlay to free up cash in your general fund and local option budget. That's where you do that. Again, that's probably the salaries.
And I don't believe that was the salary that we paid. It was,
The Esther salaries pay for the after-school program
Okay.
at Wilson, when those
Yeah.
kids do 3:30 to 5:30. The Esther salaries also help pay
Summer school.
summer school. We've provided that for the last couple of summers. So that's the salaries that come out of Esther. They have to be approved for student achievement and student growth and students that got behind because of COVID. So that's what we pay them.
we have an employee at the high school.
Yes.
That's-
Our family coordinator is paid 4 hours. Yes, sir.
They're not our maintenance.
No.
And to be clear, those programs and those salaries couldn't be paid for out of capital outlay.
No, you can't do that. Custodial salaries is the only ones that can come out of out.
I just wanted to clarify that. Is there any interest in changing the scope and delaying the project?
And for my sake, I would have an easier time supporting it if it was.
100% if it was. But I don't know if we have the time. Because when we first did this, we thought it was going to be a straight through deal, yeah. That would be great, but turned that way.
Be able to have scope identifiers and probably couldn't have bids yet by December 11th. 30 days from now, because we got a person change, come up with different scopes and give bids out in 30 days. Or that have to be maybe a little later in the month or early in January.
You thinking of the scopes?
Well, whether you take one out or if you go, you don't remove the boiler from the heat. I mean, I don't know.
Hey, what's the up cost from the gas from the boiler, do you know? Is it like, if we kept the boiler, is it another 50,000 with gas, or is it 10,000?
I see what you're saying. I'm not sure what that would be. We can definitely entertain it. And that's not, I mean, we could spend the next few weeks looking at other options. I did talk to the equipment supplier about going back to hydronic heat. Once we got the bids this last week, we just tried to whittle it down for you guys. But equipment-wise, it wasn't going to be a whole lot cheaper, but install-wise, I mean, the piping's already there. There was some concerns about capacity on that boiler and maintenance. You know, get out there and address that, but we could probably save some install dollars for sure.
You let the air out, 3-4 times a year, you think, Toby? 10 times?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't, that's a kid question. I just know
But
that's the highest.
Are you putting some sort of catwalk up there to make it easier for them? So, I thought you guys had that in the project.
There's a
Well,
ladder up the side of the building.
we were talking about putting that ladder up the side, but with the numbers the way they are,
Like you said, they were already kind of whittled down 30,000.
the other bid we got for, just so everyone knows, was $610,000 for the base bid. And I don't have the other one pulled up that they emailed to me, but I know it was in the 100,000. Yeah.
feel like this is a significant capital outlay project that we could complete without having to do like a bond, whereas it's not gonna be done unless we run the bond.
Probably lease purchase. I don't think it'd ever be a bond.
Well,
Might be a lease
or,
purchase.
and then like included in a bigger,
In a bigger bond.
yeah. If we don't do it now, it's probably not gonna be done unless we do it.
3 times a year, 2 times a year.
Keep on their system. So I don't know that like any issue is over because of the retention state.
You have any thoughts on checking on and change of scope or this will happen?
I mean, the only change of scopes you have would be taking the air out of the waiver and the install of the natural gas portion of it. In my opinion, I don't think either one of them. I mean, the natural gas going back to the boiler would be probably the most. I don't think the equipment and the waiver would be much. Because, I mean, running that natural gas is probably pretty labor intensive. I mean, we don't know if the waste is part of this project.
Could take 30 days to look at options and then bring it back to you again 30 days once we get it. More than likely, that we're not doing it at this point. That's really the only decision we're looking at. So I think 30 days, we might push it, but give everybody 30 days to look, see if there's any other options. And, you know, review the numbers and so forth. See what you want to do. My suggestion.
In my opinion, deleting the air out of the waiver, it's not gonna save much money at all. The only savings would be on the natural gas.
Yeah.
Switching it back to the boilers.
He said the equipment wasn't much cheaper, which is surprising. It's not, you know, might save some money on install.
Probably not much, for like 10 to 15 grand maybe to run gas from building to building,
That's what I had. in my
roughly,
head.
that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, most of it's underground too, just use that poly pipe.
So that wouldn't save a whole lot, pretty good.
And we did elevated pressure too, so that gas line's only 1 inch long.
I just don't know what else you do to change the scope.
Nothing I don't think's gonna knock off 100 grand.
feel like kind of hearing you guys saying that makes me want to just kind of see if we're going to do it or not. That way we can make sure to try to get equipment done and get it done in time if we do it. But if everybody wants 30 days to think about it.
This is for 30 days, it's either yes or no. Somebody wants to make the motion.
Well, I have a big problem leaving $350,000 on the table, so I would move to approve the big bid from Craig Cruz. I said that right, for the Central Plains Junior Senior High School ventilation improvements. There's a motion by me and a second by Josh. Any further questions, discussion? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Alright.
Okay, I need to count.
Good, alright. Raise your hands then, the ayes with me and Josh. The rest for those. So 2 to 4.
2 to 4, okay.
Should we look at other options or try to find options the next 30 days for the 350,000? I can do my best to try to
Try and price it. I mean,
Yeah. try to do
Maybe
my best to come
we
up.
missed something.
That's what we'll do. I'll probably touch base. Go from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you for your time.
You have the breakdowns, but I'm sure there are pages, but anything we could look at to what some stuff may cost and not do and do, or I can see if I can get something, the short versions or something. I'll see if I can.
We can look at that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
I can look at it.
The resolution for enrolling non-resident students policy JBCC. The one that we had the hearing on prior to the regular meeting. Now we just need to approve the resolution.
I move to approve the resolution for adopting board policy JBCC enrollment of non-resident students as presented.
Motion by Allison, second by Brad. Any further questions or discussions? Okay, just for clarification, the enrollment numbers and stuff will be set in the spring time too. Just anybody questioning why we're not doing that at this time? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0.
Yeah, I'll quit working just as I get drunk.
What if we did it without ESSER? Without doing through ESSER.
Without the
That's
Davis
government-
Bacon and all that?
I know that's government money.
Hate to tell you,
Yeah,
but it
it's
doesn't matter.
money in the school project. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
People look at it and say, here you go.
As soon as you got up and quit.
Yeah, I think it'd be right, like you were saying. lot of it. It's got stricter rules and regulations.
That company tax on 20,000 or on.
Yes, you can.
Sure, it's expensive.
You don't have to be first. This is what it's like. Okay. Thank you.
Better go out and work out.
Brandon works with them every day.
We can make it without.
They do have it in packets.
Yeah, we've got that.
I think it's 2.
Well, let's just start.
Okay.
So I think I'm gonna start at the, kind of the back of your packet where it shows the 2010, and it shows the population at that time, which was 3,684 basically, and shows the districts. And then let's go to the total population decline page. And I could do it backwards for you, but in 2010, there were 3,684 residents in the district. And in 2020, there's 3,512, so there was a decline of 172 people district-wide. And then I went ahead, and I thought this was just interesting to look at the towns. Claflin, census in 2020 was 645. It's now down to 562, so there was an 83 person decline. Wilson was 799. They're now at 859, so they gained 60. Holyrood was at 464, now at 403, down 61. Bushton at 314 is at 203 now. It's a big drop, 111. Lorraine gained 1 from 136 to 137. And Dorrance was 205 in 2010 and 2020 146. So down 59. And I thought it was kind of interesting that if you on the north end of the district, if you want to call it that, Wilson increased by 60, but Dorrance decreased by 59. A one person decline is between those two towns. So that I thought was interesting. And then let's look at the district map, the proposed district map, and I'm going to hold this up. It's easier. I've got District 1 over here as Wilson. So Wilson will be all of this northern part and northeast and the southwest corner is down where the nursing home is. If you're familiar, there's 278 people in that area there, and that becomes part of District 2 over here. So District 2 is kind of the remainder of Wilson plus these Ellsworth townships and Lincoln partial townships, very partial here. It's a half section. And then this is all of Plymouth, north, south, central in Russell County. So that district here, I thought I might need to draw a line in there, but I don't. I can get all of Wilson Township in there. So that's District 2. District 3 is Claflin down here. And again, I thought maybe I'd have to include a couple townships, but the figures came within tolerances for the city of Claflin to be its own district.
So does that expand a little bit? Cause wasn't it just like city limits before? And you have it going out to.
This purple here, Tamara,
Yeah.
it kind of ignore that, because I thought I was gonna have to add
Okay.
2 sections in there, that I didn't have to make it
Gotcha.
come out. So it will be just the city of Claflin, and that way that's easy for the county clerk and the voting people. So that's District 3. District 4, before there was a little strip through here that was Holyrood and Lorraine together, just kind of out of nowhere, and I thought, makes more sense, statute, to have the voting districts be consistent and precinct-wide, or in this case, township-wide. So this is Noble Township in Ellsworth County. This is Pulaski, and then Valley, and those make up one district. And then District 5 would be all of this to the east, half of Farmer Township, including Bushton and Lorraine and Frederick there. So then that leaves the rest of Barton County over here, basically, for District 6. So questions on that, and the description, the real rough description is on the first page then, what it is. I didn't want to draw a resolution until I knew what you wanted to do, because that gets into the legal part of it, and a little bit more complex. Any questions overall here? So,
Ted, just one, how much of the title is changed?
really not significant. There's some
That's what I just.
map there. The main change was down through here, just a strip, and I don't know if that's the best way to do that, because you're dividing precincts and townships and whatever else. So the clerks will like this better.
There's that shift, and then also the boundary between 5 and 6 shifts a little bit over.
It shifts more.
Yeah. So then when District 4, I was studying this afternoon, when District 4 changed from that thin strip and then back up into picking up Noble.
Yeah.
So Noble and then a chunk of Pulaski was previously part of District 2. So I follow your logic. It makes a lot of sense to me there. Yeah.
So if you give me instructions to bring a resolution back next meeting, I'll do that.
So do that by consensus or by?
I think it's a consensus, and then when he gets the legals, that's when he'll need to.
Yeah, that's what you'll need to.
When this first was brought up, that's kind of what I kind of envisioned. I mean,
There's no significant, in my mind, no significant change in board member districts. There's no gain on one end as opposed to the other, which I think was some question that might have been out there.
I also think it gets some of the, like Pulaski and Valley would probably self-identify as following with the Holyrood, yeah. So I think it gets those back to probably where people would have placed themselves or might have assumed previously they were.
So District 4 looks like it may.
follow the river.
This is
That
home,
was
this is the
way
voice of
back.
Yeah, it's by
District 4 used
territory,
to just
yeah.
be like
Yeah,
a rectangle,
right.
and now it goes
Why?
to.
Because
So bad
they
they had a
asked-
choice.
A
Back
rectangle
when
that,
they drew
was-
boundaries, they
You
had a
take this
choice.
one, we take
Yeah,
that one.
I
Yeah.
agree.
No,
Yeah.
The farm, the
the
owner, the landowner.
Oh, you picked which, oh.
Really?
Yeah, that's why
this is
it's
like,
good.
right, John?
Yeah.
The landowners had a choice of which district to go to.
Yeah, at
That's
that
why
time,
it's like- that's why it's
that
like
was
this.
crazy at that point.
Yeah, make it straight.
Yeah,
It
depending
was
on
when
which
they
school you were
closed
going
the
to.
Right. Wow.
When they closed the Odin school, caused that west end to be that way, because when they closed that school, you could choose where do you want your land. Well, the bus was already going there from Claflin, so that's why it looks like that.
Okay, luckily I have most of the legal description for this from last time. So I'm pretty happy about that.
That's 20 pages.
All right, well, I'll
Yeah.
proceed.
Yeah.
I'll just put it in consensus here to have John proceed.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
You feel like we need one for this motion out of executive session, not, have substitute teacher materials. That's not.
Session for that.
So, go for it.
Yep.
I move to accept the resignation of Kendra Bay as custodian at Central Plains Junior Senior High School.
I'll second.
So motion by Allison, a second by Josh. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. I move to accept the resignation of Toby Holmes as principal of Central Plains Junior Senior High School effective at the end of the 2023-2024 school year.
I'll second.
So motion by Allison and a second by Josh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you for all your years, Toby. I move to approve Sarah Burkhead as the substitute teacher for Central Plains.
I'll second.
So motion by Allison and a second by Josh. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Board member reports. So I will start. So we had the KASB State Convention in Wichita this last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There was 4 of us that attended. Allison, Dalton, Josh, I, and Mr. Lowry. On Friday, we listened to the keynote speaker, Steve Pemberton. And it was pretty awe-inspiring. This gentleman overcame generations of unfortunate circumstances. He himself became an orphan at a young age and survived an abusive foster care environment for years. He shared his inspiring story of defying the odds and becoming an award-winning author, corporate leader, renowned speaker, and life coach. He shared stories of how ordinary people have profound impacts in his life. And some simply by giving him a genuine smile and a caring gesture. Talked about one of the judges at the spelling bee that he was in, and how that had a profound impact on him and stayed with him because of his past years of experience. And these stories were examples of the lighthouse effect. And he had a best-selling book by that name also. But the lighthouse effect that we can each have on individuals without even realizing. I mean, this lady, fortunately, he was able to meet her years later in his life and develop an even more meaningful, much more meaningful relationship with her. But she had no idea that just this smile and nod had such an impact on him. But years later when they met, he found out that she still remembered him from that day too. So it was just a very neat story. And this lighthouse effect can help lead someone through part of their journey in life. That's just a very brief synopsis. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything about him. I mean, it was just really neat speaker. And this is my second year to go to the KSB convention, and they always have very touching and inspiring speakers. It's always well worth it. Saturday's keynote speaker was Dr. Randy Watson. Dr. Watson was named Commissioner of Education by the Kansas State Board of Education in November 2014. He spoke of many of the wonderful things happening throughout the state of Kansas in K-12 education, but also broke down the information for each individual district to see kind of how we're performing in several different areas, including graduation rates, chronic absenteeism, post-graduation preparedness, and moving students from different at-risk levels of learning to higher levels of learning in English language arts, math, and science. Moving kids to these higher levels of learning often is the greatest predictor of graduation rates. Unfortunately, the measures of success currently being reported don't always reflect the improvements that are profoundly significant in education, such as moving someone from a level 1 to a level 2 may not be success, but there is a significant impact on the graduation rate and other predictors of future level of performance, I guess, in terms of that. Another point that he made was the enormous impact that COVID had on chronic absenteeism and how it's critical that children be in school in order to be able to affect these changes, such as in their levels of learning, and especially the ability to read at grade level. And so that is one of the things that is really kind of was hit home, was the importance of getting the kids back in school and really cracking down on chronic absenteeism. Also, some of the jobs that are going to be out there in the future and how having the workforce to be able to fill the jobs in Kansas was another thing we talked about. Is there anything to add to that? I think you're doing a great job there. Okay. After Dr. Watson spoke, there was different breakout sessions. For round 1, I went to supporting new superintendents due to the search that we're in right now. So there was a couple ladies that spoke. My notes kind of break down. I didn't have time to
they focused on the importance of helping new superintendents network with surrounding superintendents, to have somebody who understands the role that they're in and can help connect them with resources, and even just having a mentor that you can bounce ideas off of. And they mentioned the Kelly program that had connected them as mentor and mentee, and just the importance of the board communicating and supporting the new superintendent and helping them understand expectations and things like that. So it was good to hear, because the superintendent, I can't remember how long the mentor had been a super, but the new superintendent was only in her second year as a super, and so she's still very much figuring things out and all of that. And so they're in two very different places, but obviously are learning from each other. So it's good to hear them talk about the mentor experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of what I did have too, was just making sure that they know like what the job duties are going to be and what's expected of them, like who does the different reports as far as the board clerk, the superintendent, encouraging, especially if we do get like a newer superintendent, encouraging them to be involved in some of these statewide organizations like the special ed co-ops, Greenbush, KSSA, KASB, national ones, KSDE, and then just, developing those relationships and having that kind of constant communication and check-in. Just to go back to one thing I thought was interesting, Dr. Jordan said at the beginning of the conference that they have 100% membership. So 100% of school boards in the state are members of KASB. And I'll kind of circle back to that. Do you guys want to talk about your breakout one?
I just mostly budget and stuff.
But my big one that I was very interested in is, I'm not gonna think of what it is, but it is dealing with paying your teachers and trying to keep your
Performance-based.
Yes. A lot of good information on that. They,
Is that your field one?
yes.
I heard that.
They went from, instead of having a cap for your teachers, they went no, it's not a 25.
Which is not.
So basically what I heard, it showed to so many things a year to get this. It wasn't a bonus, but it was an increase to their base,
The
wasn't it?
pay, yeah. And then on top of it, there was no cap on it.
Right.
That allowed the teachers to keep on growing, and hopefully you can get them good teachers to stay in there.
You said that was Deerfield?
Yeah.
I remember when I went to my new boardsmanship thing, hearing about how Deerfield had kind of restructured their pay schedule and stuff.
Is there second year?
Yes, yes. I don't remember.
And the teachers had to log in to a spreadsheet or something to mark that they went in. If they missed the home game, they'd go to the away game to still get the money. It was interesting. I talked to the guy. He knew. I don't remember his name, but tall guy.
Jared and Tyson.
I talked to him for a half hour in the hallway about it. I didn't go to the deal with it.
Very interesting. They said in the 2 years that they've done it, the teachers are more involved in the whole activity of everything of the school. And then on top of it, they're more willing to stay around. With Garden City, Holcomb, and other schools around them that would pay a lot more, they have a higher chance to get more pay without having to worry about, oh, we're not going to get much more pay this year. It just depends on their work schedule of how they work. Very interesting.
One thing I thought was interesting is that he said the parents don't come to the games very often, but it says by paying the teachers, all the teachers are there. So it's good for the kids. Unintended consequence to fill the stands with teachers because they're getting more money to be there.
Which
that
the kids were more interested because the teachers are there than their parents.
Which fit with those keynote speakers because they remember the
trauma
teacher.
brain,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The breakout session round 2 that I went to was upcoming legislative issues for 2024. I felt like they had a lot about legislative issues this year. Don't remember them having this much last year, but the number one was fully funding special education. That was a biggie that was talked about, I think, at every legislative meeting. There's going to be a task force that's going to meet on it. They said, in this one they did say that having teachers, parents, board members, anybody submit written testimony, even if it's only how much money we're gonna have to backfill, and like how much money we, have in our budget, and how that affects our budget. That having that testimony to this committee or task force by January 5th would be good, and tying that into another one that Allison and I went to later on. I thought one of the big aha moments that kind of stuck out to me was that the one state representative was actually a retired superintendent and said when he was super, his board would always say, you go talk to him, that's your job. And he's like, don't just send your super. Said, as a board member, you are a member of the largest group of state representatives. School board members are the largest elected officials. There you go, thank you. Yep. So these representatives are going to listen a lot more to someone who is an elected official who comes up and tells them what their constituents feel and how that's affecting them and their constituents, as opposed to a superintendent who goes and tells them because they're like, yeah, you're a superintendent, that's your job, that's what you're supposed to say. Like,
It's your job and you're defending your job,
yeah,
basically.
Yeah. So that kind of stuck in my brain. It kind of goes back to that, to like have as many people as you can submit written testimony. The next part was school vouchers, and one thing I found interesting was that there's $10 million set aside every year for the low-income tax credit to supposedly help low-income students be able to afford to go to have these scholarships and assist with private school tuitions. And I can't even remember, they said there was like 260,000 or something like that that are eligible, and only like 13,000 apply. So every year there's $6 million of that 10 million left on the table. So they don't know why vouchers need to be increased, because the argument for them, there's already ample amount of money left. There's ample amount of money there. Was one of the things they said there. Then they also, of course, talked about school finance. The plaintiffs in the Gannon case have asked the Supreme Court of Kansas to retain jurisdiction because the Attorney General has filed a request for the Supreme Court to release jurisdiction. And that's just the one that base state aid is fair and equitable and increases with inflation on a yearly rate.
Consumer index.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because that comes up in 24. The other one was with a lot of the laws that were kind of passed quickly at the end of session, was part of that was the disposal of school property. I'm just going to ask for clarification on that, because right now the state who has to approve it doesn't come into session until January. So if you're trying to get rid of a tool shed or an outhouse or something, like at the end of the school year or middle of the school year, you can't do it until they come back in session in January to review it. Then there's talk about the possibility of the state doing something about student behavior, but that's kind of low on the list. And then there's also one, right now they're talking about putting a cap on property tax at 4% annually. But they wanted people to really kind of look into that and think about that, because that would affect your school budget long term. And once this change would be made, it would be really hard to undo it. So we need to find out about that and really look into if that would be a good thing or not, because it probably would not be for school funding. So that was that. Then there was lunch break, which I was the voting delegate for the delegate assembly. So every school board can go to the KASB convention, and even if you don't go, you can have a voting delegate who can vote remotely over Zoom. And what you're voting on is the rules and regulations, and also on the president-elect of KASB, who would be the president next year, because they have a year to kind of learn the ropes and everything and be involved. And then you vote on the legislative committee report, which helps guide our advocates in what they lobby for us. And so it was kind of about those small changes to, like, the disposal of property and the things I just talked about in the legislative update. So then there was also a roundtable on the State Board of Education panel, and I just got in on the last bit of that. But that was, we went to that. Allison and Mr. Lowry, do you guys know that?
Most of what you missed was them introducing themselves. Because were there 6 or 7 of them there?
7.
Yeah.
7 out of 10.
So the first portion was.
Oh yeah, it took a long time. But and then they have had some shifting of their territories, so some of them were trying to figure out who their people were that they represented then. But they gave people the opportunity to ask questions of them to understand what they've been working on. And one of the things that people really got stuck on was the definition of success based on what Dr. Watson had talked about. I don't think they anticipated that being such a hot topic. Is that fair?
So, yeah.
Because the way it reports on what Dr. Watson gave us is, here's your success after they leave high school. And success is defined as completing an associate's, still being enrolled in a 4-year program, completing a 4-year program, and what was the other one?
Any credential.
Yeah, any other credential. So there were a lot of people who were worked up about, well, isn't entering the Army success, and things like that. And then they got into some of the other things that here locally we would define as success, like taking over a family business that doesn't necessarily require credentials and all of that. So there was a lively debate about maybe we need to not call that success if you're going to pare it down. And they did, one of them did a good job of explaining that success probably isn't the best word for that. That really what they're trying to define is, we know we have these jobs coming from like the Panasonic factory that's coming, and different big projects that are going to have demand for employees. And are we successfully graduating people to fill those positions? Is that fair? And so calling it success in that is not what the average person would look at and see as success. So that, we came back to that like 5 times.
Well, I think the biggest one is, so if this group is successful, then is this group
Not successful?
That's
Yeah.
a bigger point.
Yeah.
But you call it these kids not successful, which isn't true.
Right. But that's what people hear. And there were some people in the room that shared exactly how that applied and how they heard what was said, and that they felt like their child was defined as unsuccessful. So that was a good chunk of the discussion. Yeah. That's what jumps out in my mind of most of that, to be honest.
Yeah, I did get some of that.
Yeah.
So then breakout session round 3 that I went to was, so you went to talk about Kansas education state policies. And this was the one that they had 2 freshman representatives, so 2 representatives that were in their first year. And one was a moderate Republican and one was a Democrat. And that was the one that I was saying that the moderate Republican was actually the one that was the retired superintendent and said that we were part of the biggest group of elected officials and that shouldn't just rely on the superintendent, that everybody should be informed and reach out to your representatives. He said, don't hate the players, hate the game. And that if we want change, we need to be informed, be involved, and most importantly, vote after you get informed.
We also discussed more than once some of the things that they've gotten very late and been expected to vote on the next day without really good opportunity to research and understand some of what's being added in. He called it, what was it, pancake bills?
Yeah.
Is what he called it.
And that was kind of what he was saying, don't hate the player, hate the
Yep.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was actually because the moderate Republican, he was on the education committee. I believe they both are. Were they both?
I think so.
Okay, I knew the one was for sure.
I was thinking both of them were.
And he had also said, that he was given some questions to read, and by question number 2, he was going off script. He was like, these don't even apply to what we're talking about right now. And but yeah, it was. Oh, I remember that they were surprised by the number of people that would come up to him and say, "Man, I wish I could vote the way you just did." He's like, "Well, you can." That was interesting. And then I went to breakout session round 4, which is superintendent evaluation tool. There are several groups trying to formulate a new tool, really just trying to create something that's more of a collaborative communication process instead of the arbitrary numbers and maybe a comment or 2. So they're trying to get this to where it's done twice a year, and more of kind of a continuum, and relates back to your board goals and strategic plan. And again, they want it more to be a consensus instead of a collaboration. So that way the superintendent really is working for one board and not 7 individuals. I did talk to a couple other districts sitting at my table, and one of the districts, even with how they do it now, they do it all during executive session. That way they can just do it and get it done, and they don't have to worry about electronics copies being out, floating around, or anything like that. And again, so it can be a consensus and a discussion instead of just putting together numbers. That was all the breakout sessions that I went to. And then Sunday's keynote speaker was Rebecca Lewis Pankratz, which really floored me too, to hear this story, this amazing story of overcoming poverty and trauma and 8 ACEs, which probably means more to education, people in education than it does to me. But, and then hearing how this all happened in what I would consider fairly small town Kansas, and different small towns in Kansas, and it was just amazing and to hear her story of all of the things that she was able to overcome, and then the science that she could pair with it, and the trauma brain, and healing from that, and hearing how a lot of it again came back to individuals that were involved in her life, and it really related back to the first keynote speaker and the Lighthouse Effect, and there was just, you know, key individuals along her path and her life story that she could really point out, and hearing how one of them was the school and the school system that her kids were in, and how much they rallied around her and helped her through such a tough time and overcoming alcoholism and like these kids who had trauma brains too from the lives that they have had. It was really moving.
The big thing I got on both of them is they felt a comfort at the school. You know, you come back and realize that there is probably some kids in every district that are that way. You know, same thing with our program of feeding the students through the summer. Some of them might be, that's the only meal that they get. And you don't realize it until everything is put. And that's the big thing I see on it is, you know, they did feel some comfort on both speakers when they were at school, especially the smaller grades.
And they both couldn't wait to be back in school. They were there before the school was open.
Yes.
So they could be there as long as possible.
She was when she was in grade school. She didn't feel the same
Yes.
level of comfort
Yes.
in middle school, and she said by the time she was in high school, she had her mind made up, she was checked out, but it was just a different environment. But it was and the really cool thing was that she felt like her school was in being bullied and bad things were being said about that district that she loved so much. And this year she got elected to the school board. I don't know, it was a cool way to end it. But seeing how both of these people overcame so much too. And both of them, by any accounts, nobody would have ever thought that they would be successful. And I would definitely say they were both extremely successful. And one thing she said too kind of stuck out to me was that when kids are struggling in math, we help them. When they're struggling in English or reading, we help them. When they're struggling with behavior, we send them out to the wall. So it's just like, she's just helping to change the mindset and creating programs around the state and country to help them change that trauma-informed mindset. Okay, sorry, I rambled on long enough. Administrative reports. It was a good conference. I wanted to share.
Very good.
To the account matches what's in the bank. At our conferences, parent-teacher conferences, 95% of our families were represented. November 7th, our K through 6 went over to the dress rehearsal of the play. We ended last Wednesday, our last Wednesday for Club Invention went great. 24 kids were involved in that, all pertaining to endangered earth and endangered species, and 90% of the time was building and creating various projects. I asked the kids, you know, if the majority said we would have something like this again, they would love to be back in and do it again. The 10th, we had the Cosmosphere program come out and do a rocket presentation to our first and second graders. I heard nothing but awesome things from staff and students on that.
They'll come back the 16th and the 20th and do it to the same presentation to 3rd through 6th. The only thing is we wish they would have told us about the explosion that occurred because it did kind of rock and scare a few people. And so the classrooms who didn't know that was going on, but kids enjoyed it. This week is American Education Week, so plan to provide some daily treats to the staff and a meal to them on Wednesday. The high school ag class will come work with our 3rd through 6th grade students on November 15th, and we'll have dental screens that day as well. On the 16th, 3rd grade classes will go to the Claflin Community Center, and I forgot to put the Legion on there too, so they'll be going to both locations on the 16th. Already sending out progress reports for 3rd through 6th for the second 9 weeks. We'll go home on the 17th, and Thanksgiving break is next week, and then we'll come back for the 4th and have our elementary music for all. Crazy. Time is fine. Any questions?
Thank you. Our bank statements and reconciliation reports all match. Into the 9 weeks was the 13th, and we had parent teachers on the 23rd. We had about 40% of the parents during the come and go. All of our seniors conducted student-led conferences, and all of them were present, and they all went very well. Laura Dozier competed in singles at state tennis, and Grace Lamont and Ryan Metro competed in doubles. Placed. Junior high basketball has begun. We have 19 boys and 18 girls out. First game was last Thursday at Bushton. 25th, our juniors and seniors attended the ESDAC Career Expo at the Fairgrounds in Hutchinson. Students all said that was a very positive experience. They got a lot of knowledge, a lot of information. All school play was last week, Thursday and Friday. Nice crowds both nights. Last week was buffer week. This week, basketball started tonight. Boys are here and the girls are at the high school. The 14th, tomorrow, we'll administer the Kansas Community Care Survey to the 8th, 10th, and 12th graders who signed up. On the 20th is Jack Kilby STEM Day over at Barton County. Junior and senior science students are attending, as well as our art students are going to have a presentation on art for STEM. That's kind of exciting. We'll do our Fast Bridge assessments November 20th through December 20th, we hope. Testing reading, math, and administrating by Sabres. Our first high school basketball game is December 1st versus Marine Academy here. Next week is the Russell Tournament. We will begin Barton County's second semester enrollment in December. It's online, and Mrs. Hammond will help the students make sure they get the correct classes. Questions?
Do we know, do you know numbers of kids out for basketball?
High school? Not yet. I will report that next month.
That's fine.
I heard 24 boys, but I haven't heard Pat's.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Wilson Elementary, this past month, we had Grandparents' Day, had a great turnout. I want to thank Alan Leland for organizing that. We had a very successful book fair that week, and of course it's a pretty good strategy to have that when grandparents are there. And they did a great job, and Melissa Shaw and Shirley Kirscher are the organizers and take care of the book fair, their library aides. We did have a cancer pink out day. We took a picture, and the Ellsworth Medical Center rewarded the students with a treat day right before school ended one day last week. Our fifth graders attend Starbase in Salina. The Creed Theater performed The Presidents for students and staff. I presented 12 students with perfect attendance for the first 9 weeks. Our K2 attended the Sunnyside Pumpkin Patch. 3-6 attended the Hutchinson Salt Mines this past month. We did have 100% parent-teacher conferences, but we did have to reach out by phone to make contact, but we did make contact with every parent to communicate with them. So by going with phone conferences to finish up a few, we ended up with 100%. We hosted 26 veterans on Veterans Day on Friday morning with a ceremony there on this past Friday. Any questions? Superintendent state audit started last week. It hasn't been completed at this time. Once she completes our over 20 students, she'll do a walkthrough and then finalize the audit. I did get a call from KDHE to review our status of the asbestos report. They said we're out of compliance. And when I got here in 2022, I discovered that. Had it scheduled the inspection. The inspection was completed, came back good, and that put us back into compliance. There was a discovery meeting held last month between representatives of Central Plains and School District in Russell. There was just informal information discussed about land transfer. We are still taking contributions for the Child Care Network, this Kansas tax credits. I will tell you it's going really fast. There's probably not very many left. I have to calculate to see where we're at, but several donations came in this past week.
What's the deadline? Is there a
Well,
deadline?
the 31st, but I don't think they're gonna have December, but I don't think so I've got about 25,000 left, and that's 70% of the contribution. We received our final valuation from the Ellsworth clerk today. All funds valuation came in at $121,413,675. The general fund came in at $113,535,684. Mill levy's 39.023, which is down from what we actually did the revenue neutral. We said the revenue neutral, we stayed revenue neutral, but we said I thought our mills were going to be 39.076, so it actually decreased 0.053 from what we thought it would be at that time. I didn't get a chance to go back and research it, but I guess it's been a few years since we've been under 40 mills. I'd have to go back quite a ways to look and see. So that's positive news today. Any questions?
On that Russell meeting, were they gonna discuss anything in
Tonight. That's up to them.
Right.
But, yeah, we just reviewed some information. I was asked about other districts, and every district that has a boundary was asked again after the September 20th head count, if there was an interest. So, and Russell was still on that.
Any open agenda items? Do we need to discuss any further the board meeting location?
Well, I put that on there from last month only because that's a decision you guys will have to make, because the resolution this passed in January was the date, time, location of the meeting. We talked about maybe having it at the high school because the situation up here, handicap accessible.
But we decided to wait when we passed the resolution.
Yes, we'll have to decide. Yeah, but that's just something to think about there. We'll do that.
That's the January 8th meeting.
Well, some meeting topics attract more people than others, so you just don't know how the crowd is going to be for sure. So we can always move it. You can just announce that the meeting will be moved, and you can still set it here like we have. But just wanted to make sure you guys understood that. So, yeah.
Items for next month's agenda. we will kind of have finalizing the superintendent search. And as far as the logistics for the January meeting and that, possible interviews.
We have personnel, maybe on that, interviews are conducted for accounts payable position.
We're hoping to have a name at the December meeting. Get them in and get them trained.
That would be the HVAC too, if there's something that comes
Yes.
from.
Oh, yes, you're right, thank you.
I was thinking about that too. I didn't know if it was necessary or not.
I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, I know.
Just as a reminder on that superintendent search to get those questions to me by December the 4th. I'll get them all together. I already got Kayla's.
As far as our principal position, that'll just be something that we advertise.
It's gonna advertise on the employment board, education employment board.
We can also go through USA, they have openings in there, and there was the secondary group, Kansas Association of Secondary Schools Principals, they do advertisements on there. And the state, yeah, so we're hoping to get that on. We was gonna wait till after tonight to make, and then I'll get that out there tomorrow.
Anything else? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Motion by Allison. I think Brad had you beat over there.
quick draw.
I take that as a second.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.